Hello and welcome everyone to another DQ&A webinar, this time on deal troubleshooting and resolving issues between the Google Ad Manager 360 and DV360. My name is Fabian. Some of you might know you already from previous webinars. I'll be your host. And I've brought with me my colleagues, Kelly and Devin. Kelly is our senior GMP tech advisor on the sell side, and Devin is the same on the buy side. So whatever questions you have, let it be it campaign manager, DV360 related, or as I said, publisher related, please ask. I would ask you to post your questions in the chat, and we are more than happy to answer your questions after our presentation. We will also record our presentation in order to then share it on YouTube. So if you need to leave early, you won't miss out on it. We'll send you the link afterwards. All right, our agenda for today. Basically, we'll show you, or the team will show you different types of deals you can go through, and also from both perspectives, Ad Manager perspective and DV360 perspective. Useful features you can use, troubleshooting, and concrete examples of what can go wrong. And in the end, as already teased, we're going to do an FAQ. So whatever questions you have, feel free to ask. With this, I'm going to hand over to Kelly and Devin and wish everyone a lot of fun.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Kelly, and I've got Devin sitting with me as well, who will say hello as well.
Hi there.
Okay, so I'm going to kick it off first because we're going to be starting from the sell side, just to show you what kind of deals are available within Ad Manager 360 and what deals you can then buy from DV360. So those are the ones that are available. So the first one that we have are open auction. So open auction is generally the lowest of the in the food chain, essentially. It's a one publisher with all buyers, and you know it's a, as we've recently come to know or come to be accustomed to, we've moved over into a first price auction. So that's the deal type for, or transaction type for all deals. Open auction is typically all of your unsold inventory. So it's bottom of the range, you know, your last ditch attempt to try and sell your inventory. And like I said, it's lowest priority in the ad server. And you can have it set up on two different buying types. So it's either a CPM floor price or a target CPM. So target CPM is just something that the system will use to try and get the best revenue for the bidding landscape, essentially. And it'll fluctuate your bids and the accepted bids based on what people are bidding. Then the third priority in the ad server, so just above open auction, we have private auction. Open auction and private auction are typically available to all publishers, as it's the easiest methods to buy inventory. Private auction is one publisher, and you could be on your own as a buyer, or you could have multiple other buyers bidding against you in one pool. But it's above the open auction still. So it's also a first price auction, and it's also unsold inventory. So it's, like I mentioned, it's second to the bottom of the food chain. And you can also add selected placements to it as well. So it does work as like a first look in relation to open auction, how if you bid high enough, you will outbid the open auction, and you will have a preference. So the last distinction here that's very important is that it is based on a floor price CPM. So instead of having a fixed price like you would in your preferred deals or programmatic guaranteed, you have a floor price. So that means it is a minimum price. So if the publisher sets it up at €3 or $3 or whatever the currency may be, you would need to be bidding higher than that in order to win the bids. You may not necessarily win it at €3. Then second from the top of the food chain is preferred deals. Preferred deals is also with one publisher, and it can also be one or several buyers. Generally, you have selected inventory for this one. You would have, maybe a niche inventory market available or any kind of inventory that you want. It does have a higher priority in the ad server over private auction and open auction. And it is a fixed CPM bid, so you wouldn't have, even if you bid 100 euros and the fixed CPM is 5 euros, it'll transact at 5 euros. However, it's important to note that the difference between this one and programmatic guaranteed is that it is not guaranteed to serve. So you're not guaranteed to have X amount of inventory, which is also useful because you could buy as much or as little inventory as required, which is why a lot of buyers tend to go for this auction type. Then top of the food chain, we have programmatic guaranteed. So guaranteed is one publisher, which is ad manager only, and one buyer. They are limited in terms of which buyers are available for the guaranteed auction, but this is something that you would need to check with your account manager to see if you're eligible for this. It's also selected inventory. Generally, it's premium inventory, so it may even have some additional targeting layers, some audience targeting, key value targeting, something that makes it more enticable and more, more interesting to the buyer. It has a high priority in the ad server, so it's a sponsorship priority, which means that it is very high up in the food chain in terms of priority in the ad server. It is also generally a fixed negotiated CPM. So just like the preferred deals, it's something that you would have negotiated outside of Ad Manager and DV360, potentially with the buyer directly or the publisher directly, and it would not transact above that value. It is also a guaranteed investment and a volume of impressions that has been transacted. So I've just put a little star next to guaranteed, purely because the guaranteed means that it serves higher up in the ad server for ad manager priorities, but it obviously means that the inventory needs to be available by the publisher for it to serve. So it won't serve lower priority line items, for example, an ad exchange line item or a house line item, which is a priority 16 in the ad server of Ad Manager. But there needs to be inventory available. If the publisher only has 100 impressions available and you've bought 1,000 impressions, you will not be able to get 1,000 impressions. You will only be able to have what the publisher has to sell. Okay, so I hope that's all clear to you guys. We're going to move on to the second part, which is the useful features. This is pretty much only from Ad Manager side, as these things are things that tend to be underutilized a little bit. So first of all, we have the creative source. This is something that's relatively new in Ad Manager, and we don't see it being used very much. So it's an extremely useful feature because you are able to have the creatives either advertiser provided or publisher managed. Now, you may be wondering, well, what's the advantage of having publisher managed creatives? So very often, there are a lot of creative types that are not supported in DV360 and Ad Exchange. So this may include things like skins, native units, custom creative through a template in Ad Manager, some third-party creatives, or anything like that. So those are not being, you can't serve them through DV360 and Ad Exchange directly. So by having a publisher managed creative, you would be able to serve those things. So you would be able to do things like a homepage takeover, like I mentioned, skins, native, something that's not, not an Ad Exchange native template. They're extremely useful for those kinds of very, very premium creative types. Then next we have audience targeting. So there I've included a screenshot of the audience targeting and what it is on what it looks like on the Ad Manager side. You can see you can add in the audiences and it will be available to serve there. We really don't see this being used very much. It really does, allow the publisher to provide an extra layer to the buyer. Like I said earlier, to make it more enticing for the buyer to buy the inventory at a higher CPM. As the publisher will know, what kind of users they have on their website. They will know what they what they can add, what they can entice for the buyer. So by having audiencing added to that, it's very, very great for the buyer. And then the last one we have here is key value targeting. So I've just shown some mock-up key values that we have here. We have things like, language, platform, position, etc. So very often we'll have publishers that will have certain differentiating factors on their ad slots. So it's 728 by 90 that sits at the top of the page. They can put in a value there on that ad slot and say position is top or above the fold or whatever the case may be. So by adding those key values in, you would be able to potentially improve your campaign significantly by having maybe a higher viewability due to having top position ad slots. You'd be able to target maybe French-speaking only users. You might be able to target people depending on age, gender, whatever targeting the publisher has applied in layers on their website, then you would be able to target through the deals as well. So that's something that's also quite underutilized and very, very important. So those are just a few of the things that we've gone over for deals that don't get used very much and that are very useful to both buyers and publishers. So now we're going to move on to the troubleshooting section, and we're going to start with a deal setup. So I'm going to go through this very quickly because I just want to show you guys the important information that you need to have for deals. What the crucial information is that you need to request from a buyer or from a publisher rather. So here in the first screen you can see where we have proposal name. So that can be anything. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It can be as descriptive or as non-descriptive as you want. We have the advertiser. So the advertiser is within the ad manager side itself. So it will be mainly for reporting for ad manager. The buyer, so that's where you would put in the buyer name. Luckily now we're able to search by seat ID as well, which we until fairly recently weren't able to do. So that's very useful as well. And then you've got a lot of other information that's not critical for the setting up of a deal. So you don't have to add all of that in, things like buyer contacts, seller contacts. The billing terms that you'll see there are always on actuals. So instead of, if you've bought 1 million impressions and your campaign only serves 1,000 impressions, you're not going to pay for 1 million impressions, you're going to pay for 1,000. That's just important to remember there as well. Okay, next slide. We have, so once you've set up that information, I mean, you don't have to add anything else at the bottom, you would then see the screen. You will then need to be setting up a new line item. So we'll go here to the new line item and you have the name, again, as descriptive or non-descriptive as you want. If you've got multiple line items, we would suggest, saying that maybe this is a standard or a sponsorship line item, or maybe it's a video or something like that. So try and make it as descriptive as you can. You can select the environment, so that'll be, in-app, display or video. Type, standard or sponsorship, creative source, sizes, start time, end time, all very general stuff. So I'm not going to go too much into detail there. Here we also have the delivery options. So we've got deliver impressions evenly. You can also have them front-loaded or as soon as possible. Display creatives, one or more. You can have all if the publisher has that enabled in their network, or as many as possible. You can select a day and time, fairly self-explanatory. Frequency cap, again, you can have as many or as few frequency caps as you want. With Ad Manager, you can have daily, weekly, monthly, and total impression and frequency caps all at the same time. So if you want 1 impression per day, 2 per week, 3 per month, and 4 lifetime, then you can set that up. Obviously, just bearing in mind that the more restrictions you add, the less you will serve on your deal. Buyer audience lists, you can add that in there as well. And then you also have your key values, audience, geography, devices, connection, mobile, application, etc. Once you've set up the line item, you can send it for review. So you can do one of two things, either request acceptance. If you know that you and the buyer have negotiated everything from the word go, you can just send it to be accepted. Or if you haven't, if there's maybe something that you're not quite sure of, you can send it to be reviewed. The buyer can then review it and then send some changes back if they want to. The other option is more actions. So this will mainly be for the publisher themselves. So you can either reserve the inventory to make sure that it would be reserved in the ad server ahead of other campaigns that they may need to load. You can archive the proposal, meaning that it'll then become null and void. You can copy with or without archived line items, so just essentially creating a new one. So I'm going to hand over to Devin.
Cool. So now that Kelly's kind of shown you through setting up the deal in Ad Manager, this is what you would see as a buyer in Display and Video 360. So when you go on the left-hand side under Negotiations tab, these essentially will be all the deals that have come through to this partner. So you can see once Kelly has requested for acceptance, you just select the deal. And then once you've selected the deal, it would show you the details. So as Kelly kind of ran through, so it has the rate type, whether it's branded. And then obviously you can see all the other details such as the start dates and URLs, positions, similar to what Kelly's kind of added in the line item. You can see that from within DV360. And then if you're happy with all of that, you just simply click accept as is, and then that would essentially allow you to target the line item, the deal, sorry, in the line item. So in the line item, under inventory source, you can see the middle, it has private deals. So in this case, I've just targeted a test deal. So you just click on that pencil, and then you can search for the newly created deal. So once publisher has created the deal, sent it, then you can then target in the line item. Once you've added your deal within the line item, you can add additional targeting, but it's best practice to only add targeting if the publisher hasn't added targeting on their side. So once you've added your targeting, you then assign creatives. So again, this is another issue that we see quite often. If the publisher has selected multiple dimensions on the buyer, most of the time will only assign one creative. So not many people know you can assign multiple creatives to a line item. So if there are various sizes or multiple sizes, you can assign those sizes within the line item. And then so here's an example from the seller side, as I just mentioned. If they don't add an extra size on Kelly's side, on the seller side, you'll see it will say the buyer's creatives are missing.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, this is something we see quite often, especially if we've got a publisher where they've set up, like Devin said, they've set up a deal for 3 or 4 sizes, and the buyer only adds one size. Obviously, it's important to remember that if you only add one creative, then you will have a significant, decrease in the serving capabilities of your deal. So it's important to remember that the more creatives you have, the more opportunities you will have to buy the inventory if that's what you want. And then we want to just go over some other troubleshooting issues that we see in Ad Manager. So some of these here, you can see this is a deal that was having a few different problems, which is great for us because then we get to show you what goes wrong. So these are more internal Ad Manager issues that don't really relate to DV360. So the first one there, we see 72% lost in direct competition to remnant line items with a higher CPM. So what that means in publisher and sell-side terms is that within Ad Manager, we have a hierarchy of serving. So at the top, you'll have sponsorship creatives or sponsorship line items. Then you'll have standard, standard high or low, and then those are your 2 guaranteed line item types. Underneath, you will have things like house, bulk, network, ad exchange, etc. that are all non-guaranteed types, with the house line item, like I mentioned, being right at the bottom. So what might happen here is that if you have an ad exchange line item, which will be priority 12, and you have a network line item, which is also priority 12. However, the network line item has a CPM of 10 euros. And if the bid that is coming through for the deal is 3 euros, then the network line item will win because it has a higher CPM. And that's what the 72% at the top means, is that you have other line items within the platform that are competing for that inventory and they're winning. So what you can do is underneath the bottom there, you'll see delivered line items. So if you click on that, then it'll show you all of the different line items that are serving, and it'll give you a percentage amount, and you can then troubleshoot whether you want them to serve or whether you want to pause them or make adjustments. Then underneath, it says lost in competition to line items of a higher priority, which makes sense. So you've got maybe a sponsorship line item, which is, like I mentioned, guaranteed, and top of the ad server priority, and you have standard as well, which is just above the network remnant line items, but also guaranteed. So those two line item types are higher priority, and they will then serve above the remnant line items if that is what is happening here, because they have a higher priority. So then I'm just going to skip over the next one because we're going to go over that in the next slide. So the second one from the bottom is road blocking prevented delivery. This is something we see quite often as well. Essentially what it means is there's another line item that is serving on the creative rotation, like I went over earlier. It'll be either one or more, or all, or as many as possible. So what might happen here, it also could be a tagging issue, which we could also, analyze and go into and deal with on a case-by-case basis. But what it could mean is that there's another line item that is being requested before this line item that is serving because it has the creative rotation set to either as many as possible or all. So that would then block this from serving because the request has been made before this one. Then in the next slide, we've got external buyer did not respond. That's something that we see quite often, and Devin will go over it a little bit in the next slide.
Sure. So this is from DV360. So it's similar type of troubleshoot. So you can see the total available requests, and this is based on your targeting criteria. So obviously that inventory that Kelly's just mentioned, and then you can see bid responses, impressions won, and then your win rate. So when you just go down, you can see the filtered impressions. That's based on the line item targeting, and then creatives. So that's filtered impressions based on your creatives. So if you do click on the creatives, you do see various reasons why maybe there wasn't enough out of that 36 trillion available impressions, why only 25 are filtered, and that could be because the size maybe doesn't match what the publisher specified, or if the publisher, or if it's that ad maybe violates the ad policies. So there are various reasons why the creatives number will be a bit lower than the targeting. And then when you go down, then you'll just see the eligible impressions. So now again, this is filtered eligible impressions based on the frequency that you've added to a line item, your budget and your pacing. So if your budget's too low, obviously your available impressions obviously won't be that high. And then we just go down, then it can kind of tell you, so this is on the ad manager side. So as Kelly mentioned, the buyer did not bid. So as the available impressions showed quite a bit of available impressions based on the targeting, if the bid doesn't reach what Kelly specified in the target or in the line item, then obviously she would see on her end that the buyer did not bid. And then once you go down, then the bid submitted. So this is filtered by the auction. So yeah, you can see the below minimum bid. So as I mentioned, now if your CPM or your floor price that you set up in the line item doesn't reach the minimum bid, obviously you'll see a drop in impressions there. And then auction lost internal. So most clients get a bit confused with this. So auction lost internal means it lost the bid for all line items in DV360. So it's not just related to your partner. So it's actually for every bid in DV360. And then auction lost external is for any DSP that's bidding on that inventory. So then once that's done, then you see the impressions won, and those are the impressions that you have won based on your bid.
Great, thanks, Devin. So we often get these questions with regards to deals. So the first one is the buyer's CPM high enough? So if your deal is not transacting, what are the things that you essentially want to look for? So number one, like I said, is the buyer's CPM bid high enough? We see this quite often, especially because there are platform costs involved with ad serving. So if you're serving through AppNexus or DV360 or any other SSP or DSP rather, then they will put a layer on your CPM before it even exits the platform. So if the deal is set to bid at €3 and you're bidding €3, you're not actually bidding €3 because the DSP would then put on a 15% fee or a 10% fee or a 5%, whatever the value is that they do. And that would then be taken off before it exits the DSP. So before the bid is even reached at exchange, it is lower than €3. So it's just really important to remember that when you're actually bidding. When it comes to bidding on a programmatic guaranteed or a preferred deal, if you really wanted to serve, bid high. It doesn't matter if you bid €100 and the CPM is €3. If you're bidding €100, you're then making sure that what Devin just mentioned, internal auction lost, you're making sure that doesn't happen. And chances are you might even be outbidding people externally as well and winning the impressions. The second one is, does the targeting line up? That's a really important question because, like Devin mentioned earlier on, you need to make sure that if the publisher has added layers or targeting to the deal, that you are not also adding targeting. If you have 100% clarified everything, then it might work, but this happens in less than 1% of cases. So we really, really advise to either have targeting set up on the publisher side or to have targeting set up on the buyer side. A lot of the time we see problems with deals is when both buyer and publisher have extreme targeting layers. They've got audiencing, they've got device categories, they've got geography, they've got demographics, all of those kinds of things adding onto the targeting, and that's why the deal is not serving. The third one is, am I blocking the creative or the advertiser? So this is specifically publisher related. We can obviously block certain types of creators and certain types of advertisers that are coming within Ad Manager. So you need to make sure that that's not something that's happening. This is particularly applicable to your open auction and your private auction deals, as both preferred deals and programmatic guaranteed generally tend to override many of the blocks. If you're still experiencing this problem with one of your deals, then I would suggest reaching out to us so that we can double check that the inventory isn't actually being blocked. And then the fourth one is the buyer bidding on the right deal ID? Previously, this used to be a very big problem as the offer ID and the deal ID used to change. And I think it's still the case. So you need to make sure that you have confirmed the deal ID with the publisher and that they've actually seen the updated number in their system and they've given that to you. And lastly, as a publisher, do I have enough inventory? This is obviously crucial to ad serving. If you want to sell 1 million impressions and you only have 10,000 impressions, you unfortunately won't be able to meet the targets of the campaign, and then the buyer won't be able to buy the impressions because you don't have enough inventory to supply the deal. All right, then this is just almost like the historical type of deal check. It's the pie charts that I showed earlier on are more accurate of what it looks like currently, but these ones I just wanted to show you because some of these we weren't able to capture. So very similar to what Devin's screenshots looked like. We have available impressions and they're coming into the filtered impressions. So we have buyer configurations. So that's relating to targeting, or your bid is too low, or you've added geographical targeting that's not lining up. Maybe they're targeting Spain and you're targeting Germany. Obviously, it's not going to work. Then we have buyer did not bid, which we've already covered. Campaign has budget and the run dates are the same. That you're actually bidding the correct CPM. Bids not for this deal, so they could be won through another deal or auction model, either open auction or overlapping preferred deals. So try not to create too many preferred deals that have overlapping because that could cause problems here as well. Then we have the filtered bid section. So that's generally relating to publisher blocking rules, general categories, sensitive categories, things like I mentioned in the previous slide. And then the second section would be bids allowed into the auction. filtered by competing demand. So they're lost in dynamic allocation to DFP competition. So essentially, what I was mentioning earlier on with the line items of higher priority and a higher CPM, those ones would then be winning because they are in DFP competition, but they're able to give a higher CPM, so they will win the impression. And then right at the bottom, we have matched requests, which is obviously the number of impressions that you've actually won through the auction process. Okay, so a couple of the blocking features that we're able to add that could cause potential delivery issues is advertiser. So within Ad Exchange, obviously we can single out certain advertisers if we don't want them to display on the website. So like I mentioned, this is particularly relevant to open auction and private auction, not so much preferred deals and programmatic guaranteed. If a publisher is bidding from your website and that you have their domain that they're trying to advertise blocked through a private auction, then they won't be able to buy the impressions. If they are a shopping category and you've blocked shopping, you won't be able they won't be able to win the impressions. So, and if their creative type that they're sending through is something that you have blocked as well, that's also something that you need to check. So if you've blocked text creatives and they're sending through text creatives, then you won't be able to serve the deal. So now we have a couple of FAQ from the DV360 side. I've gone through mine, so I'll hand over to Devin.
Cool. So most of the questions we get asked from the buyer side is, what is our seat ID? So in order for Ad Manager push through any deals, they need the seat ID. So the seat ID is essentially your partner ID, so which you can find under your partner level basic settings. And the next question, as we touched on quite a bit today, is can I add additional targeting when already targeting a deal? And it is best practice, so you are able to do it, but it's best practice to only do it if you've either agreed the targeting with the seller or if they're not adding any targeting on their side.
Great, thanks guys very much for listening. So we're going to go through some questions that we may or may not have at this point. So Fabian, we'll hand over to you for now.
Thanks so much, guys, for the presentation. We do indeed have 2 questions already, and to the audience, please feel free to post any questions you have. If you don't want to post your question now, or I don't know, questions come up later on, feel free to contact us too. We're happy to help. Then we're starting off first with Miklas' question. Miklas asks, we can only see key values and not audiences on the targeting. How can that be?
So that may be, you would need to check to see that you have the audience extension or the audience enabled in your Ad Manager account. If you don't have audiencing enabled and if you don't have any audiences built up, then you may not be able to see those there. They should be available. So if that is not, if you've double checked both of those, then reach out to us and we will go through it step by step with you to make sure that everything is aligned. But if you have the audience extension enabled and you have built up audiences, then you should be able to see them in the targeting section.
All right, thanks, Kelly. There's another question from not Kelly, but Kelsey. Hi, team. I recently pushed a deal to a client so that I could see how they received the deal in DV360. What we noticed is that the deal ID that I see in Ad Manager is very different from the deal ID that gets assigned to the deal in the DV360 system. I now no longer provide deal IDs to clients. It seems that clients only need the deal name. What do you say about that?
From my side, I agree with you. I generally don't like changing and providing deal IDs just purely because of what I mentioned earlier, how the deal ID tends to change. So what we would do is exactly what Devin showed in the presentation, which you'll obviously be able to go over again once you receive the recording, is to, instead of targeting the deal ID, actually go into the negotiations tab and accept it through there. So from there, you would then not have a problem with searching for the deal through the deal ID. I'm not 100%, as I'm mainly Ad Manager side, maybe Devin might have some more insights as to whether the deal ID changes, but those are the recommended steps that we would suggest that you go through.
Yeah, so from DV360 side, if you set up the deal in DV360, so whether it's a programmatic guaranteed deal, So there, essentially, when you set up the deal in DV360, again, gets pushed to ad manager side, and then once they accept it, then the deal ID gets created automatically. So that's probably where the change is. So it's been created in DV, so there has to be a unique ID, but then obviously it's accepted by the publisher, and that's maybe where the deal IDs are different. So that's why you can either create it in Ad Manager and send it to DV and accept it the way I showed today, or just send through those deal names if it's created in DV360.
And if Kelsey, if you're still having problems with that, then please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to go through both the Ad Manager and the DV360 sides to see maybe where else you might be going wrong, or what may be going wrong in the platform. And we're happy to jump in and assist you there.
All right, thanks, guys. There's another question which you won't be able to answer, but which I can answer. Thanks, Sarah, for that. Hello, will you make the presentation available? It would be very useful. We will indeed, but we can only send it out to people who agree to all GDPR-related things when they signed into the webinar. If you didn't do that, please write us an email, and we're more than happy to send you the presentation as well. Are there any other questions? I would say we'll give you guys 2 more minutes. Kelly, Devin, do you have anything to add after hearing the questions and after everything you went through?
So I'll just reiterate what Kelly said. If anyone doesn't have any questions now, send it through email, and we're happy to kind of address them there. So that's probably the only thing that I would add.
Yeah, a lot of the times we get a lot of queries that are very, very deal specific. So these things are very general, and they may help a few publishers, but a lot of the times things are very unique to the type of situation. So it's more than likely much better for you to reach out to us about your specific question, and then we will be able to help you with troubleshooting the deal and seeing within the platform if there's any problems. And we're more than happy to jump in where you need us.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys. It seems like there are no additional questions. As I already said, if there are additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You have seen our email addresses. It's fairly easy. It's either Fabian, Devin, or Kelly at DQ&A.com. Please go for it. Don't be shy. We won't bite. And until then, hopefully see you at our next webinar in about a month. And have a great rest of the week.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.